It is the Rob Carson Show. Chris Plante, nationally syndicated talk show host, and just a hell of a guy joining me on the phone. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Just great. Couldn't be better. How
Chris,
about you?
I'm great. Chris, I've known you for a while. I've known you since you were originally a talk show host at WMAL Radio, and somehow somebody thought you were worthless and fired you and then rehired you, and then suddenly you became a syndicated talk show host. How does that happen?
Well, it's the radio business. It's an up and down. You know very well, it's an up and down kind of business. And I was working, minding my own business, doing perfectly well, getting good ratings at WMAL, and
yes.
And the company that used to own WMAL, which was at the time Citadel.
Yes.
They decided, and their boss decided, that they were going to save a lot of money for the company by firing talk show hosts all over the country and producers all over the country.
Yes.
Technical directors all over the country, and
yes.
plugging in a really great national show with Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski.
Yes, yeah. How well did that work out? Is that about as well as
that didn't work out very well. I was gone for about 2 months. They did fire us all on one sunny Friday afternoon, and it was about 2 months later that they realized that they had lost 75% of their audience because.
Yes.
Honestly, who wants to listen to Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski? There are 40 people on the Upper West Side that listen to Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, and their therapists listen
yes.
to them, I think.
Yes.
And beyond that, really nobody listened to them.
No,
so,
I don't.
It was.
Weren't you, when you were away from the air? Didn't you go to France and hang out at a table near Tom Brokaw? Was that with
Tom Brokaw? Well,
yeah.
I had some time. I went and I spent a month in Santa Barbara to get away from it all, and had a perfectly lovely time there. We did go to France,
yes,
which is like another country altogether, and
yes.
and we figured we'll go and get away from it. We'll go to France, the south of France. We have a friend who had a place down there, which
nice.
is very nice.
Nice.
And we were in a small town, a little medieval town called Uzès.
Yes.
Having lunch on a beautiful afternoon, and French people all around us. When suddenly a bunch of loud, brash, obnoxious Americans with New York accents and dressed in Lycra bicycle suits in bright colors began to gather at the table next to us, a big table, 10 or 12. Turned out it was a bunch of New Yorkers and Washington people on these. It's very fashionable these days for
yes.
these East Coast types. They go on bicycle trips in fancy clothes in far-off lands. And Ted Olson, the Solicitor General of the United States, former, sat down at the table. I'm like, oh, no, I can see this coming. This is going to be news people. A moment later, Tom Brokaw sat at the table next to us.
Yes.
And I turned to my best girl and I said, how far away do you have to go to get away from these people, And we later figured it out. You know where you go to Michigan.
Thank you.
We go and spend time with my family in Michigan in the summertime. And if you go to South Haven, Michigan, you're never going to run into Tom Brokaw or Dan Rather or Don Lemon or anybody else because they don't know Michigan. They go to France.
The same thing happened with the 2016 election, I believe.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. But you spent some time away from radio. You came back to radio, and I don't want to be too inside on the radio thing here, but you landed a syndication gig, and I haven't talked to you since because you and we spend time together. How is radio right now for you, my brother? How's things? I know you're on. I keep hearing you on WLS in Chicago, where I do some time. But how are things as far as a national audience for you, my brother?
It's great. I love radio, as I know you do. It's just great. I mean, everything is so crazy right now.
Yeah.
That I'm afraid that voices like mine are the voice of reason in a wilderness, a desert of madness that we're dealing with every day with our media and the Democrats and the hostility and the lack of civility and the kick them while they're down. And these people are the worst losers in the world. Who knew it meant this much to them, all of these things? But for me, it's like, here's my problem. And I know you have the same problem, Rob.
Yeah.
I have 3 hours a day, and that's not enough.
No.
That is literally not enough to. I leave at least an hour on the table when I leave every day.
Yes.
I mean, at least an extra hour on the table every day because of all of the craziness out there. Now, it's T-ball. That makes the job very easy on one level, but the hard part is paring it down and trying to get to what you want to get to.
Of course.
But I love it. I mean, look, radio is great. You don't have to shave. You can wear T-shirts. Not that I always do, and I usually shave too. But it's TV is pretentious and full of arrogant people, and you have to wear makeup, which is not very manly.
Yeah.
And radio, no makeup, so it's much better. And you get to actually talk to people, your listeners. It's the original interactive media.
Yes.
Forget about comments on the Washington Post site or something.
Yeah.
In real time, you can't call into Don Lemon's show on CNN.
Thank you.
And point out that what he just said is completely false and wrong. But in talk radio, you're dealing with real people. You're interacting with real people in real time who you give an opportunity to say what they think to hopefully a very large audience. And, I love radio. It's wonderful. I was in TV for a long time. I was with CNN for 17 years. Don't hold that against me. But look, I had a great time working for CNN for all those years. But this is so much better. It's so much more honest and just nuts and bolts. And no pretenses, no phoniness. You just tell the truth, be yourself, talk to real people. It's wonderful.
Chris, let me ask you this. Because I started writing for Limbaugh in 1990 as a kid right out of college. He was a freshman in nationally syndicated radio at the time. How has the assault been on you so far with regard to the national media, with regard to people going after you in editorials, with regard to that? Has it been full-throated yet, or what's going on? Tell me exactly what's happened. What's the worst thing that's happened so far for you as a syndicated host?
A lot of it I just don't even pay attention to because I don't care what NPR says. NPR did a piece last week where they were attacking basically white males. There's this big thing on the left now to attack white males.
Yes. Yes.
And NPR called and they actually wanted to do an interview with me. And I said, no, but they wanted to pre-tape it and then choose sound bites. And I said, no, thank you.
Yes.
I'd do a live one, but I'm not going to do that. They ended up pulling a clip of audio from my show. And of course, it's something they consider to be bombastic and outrageous because they're NPR. And of course, what I say they consider to be outrageous and bombastic. It was designed to create the perception that the left and NPR, but I repeat myself, want to create about conservative talk radio, having to do with conservative talk radio. They really the person they pay, as you know, the most attention to is Rush Limbaugh. He's their boogeyman. He's their bad guy.
Yes.
And if they want to use someone from talk radio, typically it is Rush Limbaugh. Second is going to be Sean Hannity.
Of course.
And every now and then they get around to other people in the Washington Post and so on. And all they want from us is they want us to say something that will allow them to feign outrage.
Yeah.
And that's the role of the news media, of our awful, terrible, corrupt news media in 2018. But honestly, there have been a few hits here and there in the Washington Post where they take a swing at you. I don't care. I really don't, because the people that I care about don't believe them anyway.
Yeah.
And if they're smearing you, that's almost an endorsement. It's sort of a left-handed endorsement. If they're attacking me, if they're attacking Rush Limbaugh, it's because I'm making a strong point that they don't want made, that they feel they need to strike back at. That so Rush Limbaugh is making a point.
But you
they need to attack.
You have, and Limbaugh's the master of responding to these things. He doesn't actually respond to them, and he has suffered the slings and arrows of, my God in heaven, you can't even imagine. So you are technically, I guess, even though you are a newbie with regard to a nationally syndicated show, he is a veteran at this stuff. So it's nice to know that you were just saying, brush it off. It's not worth it. It really isn't, Chris. It really isn't, Chris. I was
doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah,
I'm completely unfazed by all of it.
I auditioned at WCCO in Minneapolis about a month ago, and I was attacked by City Pages, this liberal rag that praised me when I was in Minneapolis years ago. And they went after me because I said a couple of things. I said there's a crisis in the African American community with regard to black males. I know, crazy, right, for me to say something like that. That there's increased crime. There's fatherless homes. That there's the abortion rate. They went crazy. And then I also supported the founder of Papa John's.
Right? How dare you?
And all of this stuff. Apparently kept me from being employed, Chris. It's just nuts.
Wow. Well, I can tell you, listen, I was attacked online today by a couple of different people at a couple of different outfits because I went in kind of aggressively on the Kanye West attacks.
Yes.
Right? CNN and Don Lemon and,
yes.
and Michael Eric Dyson. And they're trotting out the Negro word. And they're calling him the token Negro. And this is what you get when Negroes don't read. And they're all laughing on CNN and they think this is great. Don Lemon, whose joke to say that he's not smart would be insulting to people who are not smart. and today I said to make a point, and it's not that I'm calling Don Lemon a lawn jockey, but I did say, listen, so I guess I can call Don Lemon a lawn jockey for the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
He's just a horse holder for them. He parrots their lines. And I of course quickly said, of course I can't say that. I can't call him that because that would be outrageous. That would be racist. That would be frowned upon.
Yes.
But when Don Lemon and his friends come on television and call Kanye West, who I think has been more successful than Michael Eric Dyson and Don Lemon, and they call him Negro and stupid and this and that and a token and the insults that they were hurling at him. I'm leaving a few out. They were so scurrilous and so racially just filthy, not tinged, but covered with the filth of race from the Democrat Party that I felt the need to swipe back and to make a point, to dramatize the point. So, okay, so I can call Don Lemon a lawn jockey, right? And of course you get the lefties lashing out. They don't lash out when Don Lemon and Michael Eric Dyson and others use these racial slurs and these insults because, Kanye wandered off the Democrat Party's plantation and the white liberals are threatening to pull his black card from him and at the same time using the cattle prods to push all other black celebrities in particular back onto the plantation because they can't have this. They can't have people like Kanye West speaking truth to power. Remember when the left used to be in favor of that? They're not anymore. Because they need, as Candace Owens was pointing out, the Democrats need part of their formula, 85% of the black vote. Otherwise, they don't win national elections. They can't win the presidency. This is key to their electoral strategy.
Chris,
and if they see someone like Kanye West chipping away at that support, maybe a crack in the wall, they're going to go after him, hammer and sickle, and they're going to inflict as much damage on him like Brett Kavanaugh. This is what they do. They don't govern well. They don't do finance well. They don't do national security well. They don't bring the country together. Yep. But, boy, they can destroy people like nobody's business.
Chris, I've got to get to much of this, but I remember years ago, this is probably 6 or 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton talked about the African Americans and straying from the Democrat or the plantation. He talked about Republicans and straying from the plantation. This has come full circle. If you are a black and you attempt to stray from the Democrat plantation, it is full circle. You may remember that original comment years ago. I remember talking about it and saying that the Democrat Party is the plantation, and when blacks stray from it, this is what happens to them. They are whipped back. They are brought back. They are, no matter what, they are destroyed otherwise. We've seen this. And Chris, let me ask you, Kanye West, as bizarre as he may be, and you talked about this today on your radio show. You talked about how he was George Bush was evil and all this stuff. And now things have come full circle, and now this pinnacle of black popular culture. And I don't admire him for anything. I think he's kind of bizarre, and I don't think he's particularly
he's a very successful guy.
astute.
In his own way, he's a great American story.
Oh my God.
He's been a remarkable. I think he's a billionaire, and he came from very modest beginnings. And his music is not my favorite music, and he's kind of a kook. But as I said today, look, Robin, when you're that rich, you're an eccentric.
Thank you.
You're not a nut. Now, when you're poor, you're a nut.
Yes.
When you're rich, you're an eccentric. It's a much better word.
Yeah. Yeah, but he had the mistake, and I watched the SNL rave that would have never gotten coverage for with the exception of social media, and all of a sudden he is a pariah. He was a hero with George Bush when he was against George Bush, but he is a pariah now because he wore a mega.
Toe the line, or as I was Michael Eric Dyson and Don Lemon are the new crackers for the Democrat Party. They stand on the edge of the plantation and they crack the whip. If Kanye wanders off, they're cracking it, not just for Kanye, but for anybody else any other black American who might be a household name. They want to make sure that they know, that everybody else knows, you can't come out and say what Kanye said or we'll come after you too. All right?
Oh, dude, it is epic. And to say that Don Lemon would call Kanye West's appearance in, and I didn't approve completely. I don't like using the word mother effer in front of the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. I didn't like that, dude.
Well, that's fine. It's also the desk that Bill Clinton had his cigar box and intern on. So,
I think,
don't talk to me. This is another thing, these clowns in the media. Oh, this is a desecration of the Oval Office. And they're sitting there wearing Bill Clinton T-shirts when they say it. The hypocrisy is it's not shocking anymore, but it's still appalling. It should still be appalling.
I kind of noticed that Kanye West was smacking the desk, and I'm kind of wondering where Monica Lewinsky's rear end was. Anyway, but aside that, the visual of that. But honestly, the Resolute desk. Here's this guy. He's using the word mother effer in the office. I was originally, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay, not appropriate, but okay, fine. Maybe we've had kind of a breakthrough with regard to popular culture, particularly a billionaire. And here's the thing. We've all been taught, Chris, you as well as I, we have white privilege. You have no way to succeed in this country if you are an African-American man. Here is an African-American billionaire who has never, most people, even, people in coal country, people in Appalachia, they white people could never imagine the riches that he and his wonderful wife have experienced, and he is in the White House now, and he is talking about how his success, and he is somehow called this a minstrel show is what Don Lemon. Dear God in heaven, are you kidding me? He still has a job. Don Lemon is calling this man a minstrel show. Dear God, Chris, what the hell?
If there's a minstrel show to be seen, it was on Don Lemon's show on CNN the other night. Honestly, have you noticed, Rob, that sitting next to Kanye West yesterday was Jim Brown, the NFL great movie star, legitimate civil rights activist in the Moses generation in the 60s when it was very real. And Jim Brown was in the Oval Office yesterday. You don't see the news media talking about him. You don't see anybody calling him Uncle Tom. You don't see anybody calling him a minstrel show because maybe they're afraid that he'd chase him down and beat him up at the age of 82. but he's nobody's talking about him because they don't want to go after him. They want to go after Kanye. But honestly, I think they're afraid to go after Jim Brown because that would be a bridge too far with Democrats, with real civil rights activists and so on. And, also, did you see Herschel Walker, another NFL great? Herschel Walker came out today, and he's got a Twitter account, as it turns out, and he went after Don Lemon And this is not a political guy. I mean, this is a guy. This is what the Democrats are afraid of. They're afraid that Kanye West and then the Democrats' racist, crazy reaction to Kanye West is going to cause people like Herschel Walker to step up and say, wait a minute, you guys. And that's what Herschel Walker is doing, saying he went to bed appalled over Don Lemon's despicable behavior and how these, Bakari sellers and Tara Setamayor, whatever her name is, these terrible remarks in the minstrel show and all this stuff. And you've got Herschel Walker saying that this is shameful. And this is exactly what terrifies them. And that's why they're striking quickly to push these people back where the Democrats say they belong. And that's waiting in line to vote for a Democrat who will never do anything for him. I mean, honestly, we had 8 years of Barack Obama, who I think was our first black president, not counting Bill Clinton, which was insulting to black people everywhere.
Thank you.
And honestly, who's done more for African Americans? Donald Trump in less than 2 years, or Barack Obama in nearly a decade of being president, where the unemployment rate didn't go down to historic lows under Barack Obama for African Americans, but it very rapidly did under President Trump. And honestly, like Spike Lee said long ago, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to, smell what's going on around here, because what the Democrats are serving up should not be enjoyed.
Let me just also, and I've talked about this, I always say when I look at economic numbers, I say thank you, Barack Obama, for leaving office.
Right, yeah.
For leaving office.
Thanks, Obama.
Leaving office.
Yeah, nice job with ISIS, Obama. Nice job with the economy, Obama. Nice job with everything.
But honestly, and I've been able to poo-poo this argument that Barack Obama's 8 years in office ultimately resulted in the economy turning around. Why didn't it happen in 2 years or 3 years? What is your response to those?
It was the slowest recovery from any recession since the end of World War II.
Yeah. But why can't you, Chris, though? Barack Obama sowed the seeds of a successful economy. It just took to Donald Trump to have this actually start to grow. Isn't it all Barack Obama? Honestly, Chris, come on. Didn't Barack Obama do this? Isn't this Barack Obama's economy?
Well, that's what NBC and the Washington Post reported, certainly. Yes. And it is. I mean, they literally are reporting, oh, no, this Trump did this is Obama's economy. It is sick. I mean, honestly, I'm concerned for their mental health. And there are millions. And in fact, there's a fun story that popped this afternoon that psychiatrists and psychologists around the country are reporting that business is booming and their couches are full. And a huge part of their business right now is Democrats who are so panicked and freaked out and mentally ill about President Trump being in the Oval Office instead of Hillary Clinton that they're literally, pathetically seeking out psychological help because they're a mess. They're a mess because Hillary didn't. Can you imagine being so weak and so pathetic?
I know. Listen, I was not terribly happy when Barack Obama was elected president.
Right.
And I followed his presidency.
I voted against him twice. He promised the fundamental transformation of something that I love and that he obviously doesn't.
Yes.
And I think it's true. It's a campaign promise he made good on. He fundamentally transformed America. Not for the better, but he never said it was going to be for the better, did he?
Yes, and we are unfortunately still afflicted by the shrapnel of that. Chris, I want to get back to what happened in D.C. with regard to Kanye West, but I have to touch base with you, your thoughts on Brett Kavanaugh and what happened. Dear God in heaven, Chris, we've talked about this before. What low are we going to reach with regard to the Democrat Party on a host of fronts, but to actually be able to destroy a man's life, his character, and assassinate him and convict him of sexual assault with with a 36-year-old assault claim that this person had no idea when it happened, where it happened, who was there, blah, blah, blah. Just your thoughts on the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. And it's so wonderful that the Republican Party was able to tamp out the cigarette that the Democrat Party put on the ground there rather than it grow into a blaze. Your thoughts on Brett Kavanaugh hearings and the aftermath?
Well, look, I mean, you're dealing with a party that is full of people who think O.J. was innocent and Brett Kavanaugh is guilty. I think if that's the way you come out on this, you should be barred from serving on jury duty for the rest of your life because you're obviously not capable of reaching rational conclusions. The smear was epic. It was insane. It was so vicious and just dangerous. I literally think that their attacks are dangerous. We have members of Congress that have already been shot and shot at. We have people being physically attacked and assaulted and accosted, not just government officials, but people with a Trump bumper sticker on their pickup truck burned to the ground in Vancouver, Washington recently. And let me say, this is how crazy it is. After the election, the Democrats were screaming and yelling about abolishing the Electoral College because they can't win elections, so they want to burn our system to the ground and start over again with a new system where they can win. Today, Rob, there's a story, I believe it's Vox, and they contacted a left-wing loon at Harvard Law School who is advocating that we abolish the Supreme Court, all right? They're insane. They're completely berserk. You lose the election, they want to abolish the Electoral College. They lose a seat on the Supreme Court, which they think is very important, apparently, because they do everything through the Supreme Court, not through the legislature. They have no use for branches of government and all that stuff. But now they want to abolish the Supreme Court because they feel like they're children with squirrels running around in their brains. These people are nuts. I mean, they're not adults. They're not thinking people. They're not serious people. They're fanatics. They're extremists. They're radicals. And their ideas are berserk, if you can call them ideas. I'm kind of hard-pressed to actually say that abolishing the Electoral College and the Supreme Court are ideas. They don't really rise to the level of... and look, calling people a minstrel show and token Negro. No, those aren't ideas either. They're vicious. They're bitchy. They laugh up their sleeves at people who are far superior to themselves intellectually, professionally, socially. Just see Brett Kavanaugh. This will be nowhere. This will be reported nowhere. Yeah. Brett Kavanaugh yesterday was doing what he does.
Yes.
He was down at the homeless shelter feeding the homeless, not because he's looking for a photo op, because they won't give him that even if he wanted that. They'll go there to smear him, but not to say anything nice about it. He's been doing it for years because that's the kind of person that he is. Not a serial child drug, the Bill Cosby style drugger and gang rapist of children, as the Democrats would like to. The party again of Bill Clinton and Anthony Weiner and Elliot Spitzer and John Edwards and Ted Kennedy and the Democrat Party. They have a long history of sexual deviancy and abuse and everything else. Whereas, we're the party of Ronald Reagan and Mitt Romney and John McCain. I don't think we're really, our problem is we hold, they yell at us and we hold the door open.
Now, by the way, did you hear that Anthony Weiner is hoping for an early release? And he's also hoping to get out of jail early.
Yeah, exactly. At first one and then the other.
His biggest fear was an early release. I believe that was originally.
Yeah, well, a lot of men have that concern.
Let's talk a little bit about Portland, Oregon. We saw the and it's another outrage after another. I mean, I don't even know where the hell to go. You had Portland, Oregon last week, where you had the ultimate, Chris. You saw the crystallization of what is being taught in academic America being expressed by black hooded white people screaming that you're a white supremacist at an older man in a car, calling him a member of the KKK and all this. I mean, this is the distillation of what's been happening in academia forever, and it is on the streets now. Go ahead.
Well, honestly, you're right. This big, I mean, they should be, let me just say they should be arrested, okay?
Thank you.
They're threatening and intimidating, and because they've got liberal lunatics running the city council and the mayor's office in Portland, the police are afraid to go in and enforce the law because the police will end up being the bad guys. So they back off, so more crime happens. It happens in Baltimore. It happens in Chicago. Yeah, and you're right. There's this big white moron standing out there yelling, "Oh, you're a real whitey, aren't you? Oh, you're white supremacist. Oh, you're North Carolina Tag. Why don't you go back where you came from?" I mean, it's Bull Connor. The guy is Bull Connor, but he's confused. It's like Rachel Dolezal. You remember Rachel Dolezal? She thought she was black. She's a Democrat, but she's white.
Yes.
And she was the head of the NAACP. And at MSNBC, Melissa Harris Perry said, "Well, if she thinks of herself as black, who are we to second guess her?"
Thank you.
Like they don't believe in gender anymore. They've lost the bubble. They've lost their minds. They don't know. I don't care about race, but boy, they sure do. Everything is about race. Everything is about gender. Everything is about sexual preference,
Lord.
which, may I just say, is the opposite of liberalism.
Well, liberalism, and Chris, I said this years ago. I was a freshman broadcaster, and I said that liberalism was supposed to be, I had heard the definition of open-minded. The exact opposite is, and I said this back 25 years ago, and it has come to ultimate fruition now.
Well, look, I was raised, my mother, God bless her, a lifelong Democrat. I don't think she'd have anything to do with this party.
No.
John F. Kennedy wouldn't have anything to do with this party.
No.
I'm, as I've said before, I'm politically right about where John F. Kennedy was. And if that makes me an extreme right-winger, then something funny has happened to the Democrat Party on economic, social, foreign policy issues. You'll find that, I might have a couple of disagreements with John F. Kennedy and that administration, but not many. The Democrat Party, on the other hand, kicked out Senator Joe Lieberman, a liberal Democrat from Connecticut, because he wasn't crazy enough for them. And the party has just gone around the bend. They're not democratic. The idea of they're leftists, and there's a huge difference. The idea of liberalism, as it was presented to me as a small child, say the 1970s, is that color doesn't matter. It's not important. That's not how you should judge people or gauge or assess people. Someone's sexual orientation or preference or whatever term you'd like, because some aren't politically correct, so they've been banned. I don't care if someone's gay. I got a transgender person living in my building at home. We ride the elevator. Hi, how you doing? I wish nobody any harm, any ill. But the problem that we have is that the left focuses almost exclusively now on the factors that separate us, that divide us, that pit us against one another. This person is not a person. It's a black person. It's an African American, not an American. It's a gay American, not an American. It's a proud Latina, lesbian, gay, queer, non-cisgender, whatever the hell, they've got 58 different gender choices on Facebook, plus other, just in case you don't find you in there. Now, that's fine. And that's, you're struggling, you're suffering, you're confused as hell. That's fine. Just stop plaguing me with it. It doesn't have to be a part of my everyday life or of politics or anything else. But this is the Democrat Party. They built their brand on division and anger and resentment and hatred along lines of class and race and gender and sexual preference and anything at geography, anything else you can find. They're the most divisive gang of miscreants I think we've ever seen, certainly in modern American politics.
I want to get into where we go here real quick, but I guess I might be a couple of genders myself because I am a non-traditional male, masculine. I like to do home improvement and cooking. Does that make me some sort of cis something or other? I mean...
Well, they'll find some way to insult you in there. Most of the great chefs in the world, of course, are men. So it's okay. Cooking, that's okay. Doing handiwork around the house, Billie Jean King and you, that's fine. That's great. Those are manly enough, I think. Guns, I'm into guns and, fast cars. And you know what I like? I like women. You know what kind of women I like? I like women that like men.
Thank you.
If you're a woman who likes women, I kind of like that too. So, we can talk.
As long as it's tastefully,
everybody does.
As long as it's tastefully done, or actually occasionally distastefully.
Right.
But Chris, where do we go? Do you think that these things are like with the Kavanaugh thing? I think some people, and I wasn't a surprise to me. It appeared that some people, they say energizes you and I agree on the blue wave, the red wave crap. The red is leftist and awful, and they are communistic. Blue has never belonged to the left. They only did that because Barack Obama was running for office as a distraction. But do you believe that this has pissed us off enough that we're like, I'm done with this. Let's turn the thing around, or are we going to continue to descend to the left side of the equation? Go ahead.
Well, I think the left is that it controls the Democrat Party. It controls much of the news media. I don't mean liberals. I don't mean liberal Democrats. I mean the left.
Amen.
And some of them are too dumb to even know that they've crossed over. But I know there is absolutely no end in sight, and their mission is to destroy. Not to win, to destroy. When you're down, we kick you. Eric Holder, he was the chief flippin' law enforcement officer of the United States of America under Barack Obama, who launched his political career in the living room of two radical leftist terrorists, whose racist, anti-Semitic minister, Jeremiah Wright, would have killed any Republican's political career permanently. This is the party of Saul Alinsky. Hillary Clinton, Obama was an Alinskyite, but Hillary Clinton actually worked personally for Saul Alinsky and wrote her dirty, rotten thesis paper called There Is Only the Fight. Never marry a woman who wrote a thesis paper called There Is Only the Fight. Also, never elect a woman president of the United States who wrote a thesis paper called There Is Only the Fight. They're just disagreeable, ornery, vicious, angry, bitter, totalitarian people who have no interest in civility, as they've made very abundantly clear. So, and their mission is not just to win, it's to destroy the Republican Party. These are the stakes, and they have no regard for the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. They can't wait to dismantle it. That's what this whole project is about. The open borders thing. Barack Obama, don't worry about them learning to speak English. You should learn to speak Spanish.
Yes.
Really? You're the president of what country again? These people are not on our side. They don't believe in freedom and liberty. They don't believe in the Constitution. Ruth Gator Binsberg, as I like to call her, was asked while overseas in a developing country, well, when we go to craft our Constitution, what should we use as a model? She recommended not the U.S. Constitution, but the Constitution of South Africa.
Yes.
Now, these people are not on our side. No. And she's a hero, an icon of the left. Yeah. And kind of a cute little old lady who falls asleep at every opportunity.
Constantly. Yeah,
she's a sleeping person, isn't she? And she's kind of cute when she falls asleep. But that's, look, if she were a Republican, they would viciously rip her limbs from limb, and they'd beat her to death with the arms that they pulled off of her, because they don't care about that. They have no sense of decency. They have no sense of fair play. When you accuse Brett Kavanaugh, a squeaky clean Catholic schoolboy federal judge for more than a decade in Washington, D.C., you accuse him of being a serial child gang rapist. There's no place to go from there.
No, not really.
And then they dare to say, when you go low, we go high.
Oh, dear God in heaven.
Are you kidding me?
Did you ever?
Is why ammo's flying off the shelves.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever get drunk in high school or college?
I think it's possible that I did. Chris, distinct possibility.
We did hear there were several, and just unfounded, just stupidity of the left with regard to Brett Kavanaugh. And there was one accusation that he might have shown his member, I guess, at a college party, and I certainly would not support that sort of action. However, I want every woman who's ever shown her boobs at Mardi Gras to be ineligible for public office. I honestly, I want that done.
Yeah. It's amazing. This is, of course, what Bill Clinton did to Paula Jones.
Thank you.
Bill Clinton was the Attorney General. He wasn't, a freshman in college. He was the Attorney General of the state of Arkansas when he, whipped out the gubernatorial seal and wagged it in Paula Jones's face. She was a secretary or something at the hotel, ordered her, snapped his fingers, ordered her up to his hotel suite, which she had no business being in, as Attorney General, while his loving wife Hillary was at home with Vince Foster or Webb Hubbell or Hummel Weiner or somebody, who knows.
Yes.
And he said, "Kiss it," as he told her, "Kiss it." And then he became the Democrats' presidential candidate and two-term president.
No.
And banging the interns in the Oval Office with the cigars, and I think they were illegal Cuban cigars at the time too. And he's a hero. They want to put him on stamps. They want to, so they can lick him. They want to put him on Mount Rushmore so they can climb him and sit on top of him. They love this guy. And they couldn't be bigger hypocrites if it were their goal to be bigger hypocrites.
Is there anything in your high school yearbook that I should be concerned about, Chris?
I never appeared in a yearbook of any kind.
What? Why not?
Because I thought I might be up for the Supreme Court someday. So I.
These are odd times, Chris. These are odd times. I have been. I do a nationally syndicated podcast. You do a nationally syndicated radio program. These are odd times, and there are days that I am very, disconcerted and very concerned about the country, and then I see the left overplaying its hand, and I go, okay, we're going to come back to common sense. I would assume that the further the left goes, the further they go with this extreme calling, Kanye West a lawn jockey. Well, you did that actually, but I think I agree with that actually. But
I called Don Lemon, not Kanye West, and again, it was to dramatize a point. To make the point that hurling these epithets, hurling these racial insults, is considered to be perfectly fine when leftists do it, and they do it constantly.
Well,
and that's the reason I used the lawn jockey reference.
Thank you.
And made fun. I know you're not misrepresenting it, but
no, of course
I'm just
not.
saying that when I make this point, and then I'm attacked as I was today, which is fine, by these lefties who are expressing outrage. They're feigning outrage at this while just skating right by, whistling right by all of the racial epithets the left hurls all day, every day, because someone dared wander off the planet.
Well, I did. I used the analogy today, and I texted you during your show, and I don't know if you saw it. I said, what's next? Is Kanye West, is Donald Trump the organ grinder, and is Kanye West the monkey with the cup? I mean, honestly,
I wouldn't. I bet you could go find that reference has doubtless already been made by someone at the Huffington Post or somewhere like that.
Maybe it's
because
good.
They're perfectly. Now they assign their black crackers to do that for them. they because they're such racists that they would never write that themselves as white people.
No.
So they assign a black person to do their dirty work for them, and the black person that does it for them is the real Uncle Tom in this country.
You'll get like Elie Mystal, Don Lemon, all of these people. Oh dear God, Chris, honestly, I the last few days of what's happened with regard to race in this country, particularly Kanye West, I know we have there are a lot of ignorant masses out there who are pop culture devourers and all this. But I hope that we can take this so far you can't take it any far, and then the majority of people realize the absurdity of it. Are you optimistic that way? Are you concerned about the division of the country growing even further? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, the goal of the Democrat Party is certainly to tear the country apart further, and I honestly, is their ultimate goal a war in this country, a civil war in this country? They're absolutely unbridled and relentless. They have no limits. They have no sense of decency, and I'm very concerned about where it goes from here. Now, maybe if they don't win the House of Representatives in the upcoming elections, and I expect they're not going to win the Senate. I don't think there's any chance. I'd like to see the Republicans show up on Election Day and put a stomp on these vicious bastards in the Democrat Party. And if they lost this election big, if Republicans showed up and the Democrats didn't win the House, which historically you're likely to do in the the midterm elections of blah blah, If they lose it, maybe I don't think they're capable of introspection, but maybe a little navel gazing would be in order. Maybe they should, look, they need to take a poll that convinces them that they're too vicious. But what we learned from the Politico right after the Kavanaugh hearings and when he was confirmed and put on the court, the people in the Politico went and talked to all their Democrat friends with whom they sleep and cheat on their wives with and stuff. They came up with this insanity that the problem was that they weren't vicious enough, that they didn't go far enough. And if that's their conclusion, then we're headed to a really bad place.
Chris.
We're headed to it, and I think they welcome that bad place. I really do.
I think that all of this, and this is a mild prediction from someone who is, whatever I am. I think this portends their end, Chris, and I also believe they cannot win some sort of civil war intellectually or physically because they are not armed better intellectually and physically, as well as those who lean to the right. They quite simply do not have it. You can hurl, you've said this on your show, that you can hurl urine bombs and fecal bombs and you can throw rocks and you can do this. But honestly, there's a point where we are only going to be pushed so much, and then you're going to get your ass kicked, not only at the ballot box, but possibly even physically. Chris, they cannot and will not win. This may be that there is a separation of somehow they all move to California or whatever, but they have no chance of winning, and they are further weakening themselves because they are not winning the intellectual argument. If you want to go a little further with it, they're not going to win the constitutional argument, and they certainly won't win the physical argument. I'm not saying anything, but there's no chance of winning. You've got to eventually reason. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't bank on their having any interest in that. It's a cultural war, of course, also, and they have most of the weapons in the cultural arsenal. They have Hollywood, they have entertainment television, they have HBO and Showtime, they have Saturday Night Live, they have the late night talk shows, the Colberts and the Jimmy Kimmels of the world. They have all of these tools in their arsenal that Republicans don't have.
But why
in
is
the culture war?
But why is Donald Trump winning, Chris? Why with all of that? Why is Donald Trump winning? Why are people filling stadiums to see Donald Trump? And I know you're waiting for the tickets for Bill and Hillary Clinton's tour, but honestly, why?
Yeah, I got the family pack. They're for the little people. They're all about the little people. They're flying around in somebody else's Gulfstream jet to events where you pay $250 to look at them.
Oh no, honestly, it's $700 actually. It's more than the Eagles when they toured.
They are maybe. It's a cult. Look, the thing it's very much a cult. It's got all the markings of a cult. They abandoned religion. They abandoned God. Voltaire said centuries ago, if God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him. They invented God, and it's them. All right, as Barack Obama said, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Yeah. They believe that they have the power to slow the rise of the ocean. That their elected leaders can heal the planet. The Roman emperors didn't lay claim to such outrageous things, and the Democrats do it very cavalierly today, and the news media says, Barack Obama is going to slow the rise of the oceans. I literally have had callers on my show, and I asked them, liberals, do you really believe that Barack Obama can slow the rise of the oceans? And they say yes.
Yes.
They say yes.
If only
there's a building in Washington that if you go to the people in this building in Washington and tell them to slow the rise of the oceans, they will do it. And sure, there will be some pain and suffering for you, and we're going to need more of your money in Texas, and we're going to have to limit your freedom, and then we will slow the rise of the oceans. That's good, right?
Yes.
It's insane. It's a cult.
Rome would still be around if they could have just had the ideals of the current Democrat Party. Chris, I greatly appreciate your time today. I really appreciate your show every day, 9 to noon Eastern Standard Time, all over the country. and continued success as always. I admired you for a very long time, and I'm very glad that you were a voice there. And I'm optimistic, Chris, despite all of the things that are happening. I am optimistic. I'm optimistic about November because I don't think you can just win with hate. I don't think you can do it, Chris. I may be wrong, but although there was Germany in 29?
Well, yeah, and look, and this is, and honestly, you kind of referenced it before. The attack on Kavanaugh was part of. Well, it's sickening. It makes me want to vomit on a Democrat's head. This is part of their motivating their base. This really is. All right, we said that, Christine Ford, somebody jumped on her when she was 15, yes. And Brett Kavanaugh did it. And then that, wasn't really working very well, so that the weenie wagger who told her friends that she didn't know who wagged the weenie at her. And then they trot out the pimp lawyer who thinks he's the number one Democrat in line for the presidency,
yes,
and I think he might be at this point. And that these pimps and whores run the Democrat Party are just disgraceful. They bring up this, gang rape and quaaludes, and then you interviewed this woman, Julie Swetnick, as NBC did, and Kate Snow. And so, what can you say? Did you see him putting quaaludes in? No, but I did see him handing red Solo cups to people at a party.
Which I don't.
Well, that kind of, and then standing around talking to his friends. Well, that's not exactly quaaludes and gang rape, is it? but that's, and the news media, they were all. It doesn't meet any journalistic standard known anywhere in Western civilization, and the press ran with it all over the place anyway because they're pigs.
Dear Lord. First of all, I was in high school in the 80s. I don't recall red Solo cups, and we certainly didn't have punch bowls filled with
punch bowls.
No punch bowls. Like you got together in the 1980s with your mom, with your friends while mom and dad were out of town, and you had a punch bowl.
Hey everybody, where's the punch bowl? Quick, get the bucket of quaaludes.
When I was
teenage girls are coming over, and we're going to gang rape them just like they taught us at Catholic school.
When I was in college, we had a wading pool, and people would bring everything they had to drink and dump it in there, but there were no quaaludes and red Solo cups. And there's certainly,
how many quaaludes you'd have to put in the punch before people passed out?
It'd
have to be viscous. It'd have to be like cough syrup.
It's like Jell-O almost. All right, Chris. Listen, great to have you on the show. Continued success. I'm fighting the battle on social media. Many of my affiliate Facebook pages have been taken down. Fortunately, you are protected by I guess to some degree, the FCC and the terrestrial radio medium. We are doing the battle with regard to the social media, but I do appreciate your time today. As always, continued success.
Thanks, Rob.
The best to you.
Thanks very much. Great talking to you.
You bet. The best to you and your girl. I won't mention any names, but you're the best. We'll talk soon. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. All right,
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye.
Talk soon.
All right.